Alright, chat. Something new that we have added in this upcoming season. This is a pretty good example of it. Need him with the prime, thank you. A lot of people don't like how mobility skills, for example, have cooldowns, right? Well, it's not so much that they don't like they have cooldowns, it's that when you're trying to play your build and you don't have a short cooldown, then the way that D2 cooldowns work is all cooldowns put every other skill on cooldown. So cooldowns wouldn't be so bad if they weren't global. Because if, of course, you cast a long cooldown skill, then these short cooldown skills are suddenly on a long cooldown. But in this upcoming patch, cooldowns are now completely independent of each other. So all skills will now have independent cooldowns going further. There is no longer global cooldowns in Season 6. So that means things like Bone Armor, Bone Wall, Blood Warp will all no longer overlap. You could cast them all independently. Anything with a cooldown whatsoever. You know, Plague Javelin will no longer override with Valkyrie. You can now cast your Valk and not worry about your Plague Jab being put on CD. Anything like that, right? So, you know, Meteor, anything whatsoever, right? Necros are going to fill the room with bones. Well, in PD2, Bone Wall and Bone Prison actually do have a cooldown. So this is actually kind of a good way to make them more usable as utility skills, because now it's not like a choice. You know, you can just use both. So, it's pretty sweet. Okay, so another change that we've made in this upcoming season. So obviously we've done a few things this season to make melee more relevant, right? One of the things that we added was the Orb of Fortification. For people that aren't aware, this is kind of, this is something we've already previously shown, but essentially it's an orb that you can fuse with maps. It reduces the base density by half, doubles their HP, doubles the XP they grant, doubles the loot they provide, and increases their damage by 20%. So it's a less is more approach to mapping, which makes it less dependent on density, right? And that's for, you know, melee builds and builds with lower density than other builds. So that's obviously something that we added to make melee more relevant. People are also very aware that melee attacks deal splash damage exists in PD2, right? So melee attacks deal splash damage. What it does is essentially if you have, say, an attack like Concentrate, right? Concentrate is a conversion skill. So Concentrate converts your damage to magic. But that only applies to the initial target you hit. Because the way that Splash works is that Splash splashes your attack damage. It does not splash your skill damage. So your Splash deals 8.5k, and your main initial hit is 17k. But Concentrate is converting to magic only on the skill. So it kind of makes it so skills like Concentrate, for example, aren't quite as good as they used to. Or as they should be, I should say. Because it doesn't splash. So what we actually did is we reworked melee splash to now splash your skill damage, which means a skill like Concentrate now splashes its magic damage conversion. So melee in Season 6 will now splash their skill damage, which also means that skills like Smite will splash its Smite damage, and Kick will splash its Kick damage. So, speaking of kick, something that a lot of people are aware of as well is Dragontail, for example, is a pretty wicked skill, right? It is a pretty high damage, it's got pretty good AoE, but one of the big clunkiness, kind of odd issues with Dragontail is that it is a fizz to fire conversion skill. So it deals fire damage, but it requires hitting a target that isn't physical immune, because it has to deal fizz damage in order to begin the calculation of the conversion. So we actually changed Dragontail going forward in Season 6 to do the conversion before the fizz check. So now even if you hit a fizz immune mob, you'll still deal your fire damage because it converts prior to that. So it will always convert and then deal the fire damage and then do the check that way. So it's now essentially not an odd double skill. It's essentially just a conversion fire attack. Something else talking about melee. Previously, one of the issues with non-ethereal items was that sometimes it gets annoying having to repair so often, especially endgame when you're mapping and stuff like that. So we did a small quality life change. Weapon durability now has a 50% reduced chance of going down by 1. So your weapons will now break 50% slower than in Season 5 going forward. Just a little more love to the non-ethereal items. So as I talked about at the beginning of this thing, the corruption changes, I'm not going to do a big overhaul like I planned. I'm just going to do a balance rework. So we're just going to do some balance changes. That'll come in patch 1. So this isn't regarding exactly corruptions, right, I'm about to do. Or the affixes, rather. But we do have another change regarding corruptions. So, previously, if you bricked an item, it would have turned into a rare, and the rare would have a corrupted tag. However, in Season 6, corrupted bricks will also get a corruption mod. Nico with the T1 for 13 months. I appreciate that. So bricked rares in Season 6 will now get a corruption mod. What about bricked Annies? They will not get a corruption mod. Bricked Annies will just be bricked charms, because there's no corruption outcomes for charms. Alright. Here we go, chat. We're gonna hop into some patch notes streaming. A little patch note stream. Alright. So, like we talked about earlier, spells and abilities no longer share cooldown. We've completely removed a global cooldown. Screen shake is now disableable on the BH settings menu. Event messages now display on single player. Qualkek now rewards stacked runes. You can now stack and unstack runes while in the shop screen. Map corruptions no longer require 2 transmutes. Weapon durability now reduces at 50% of its previous values. Staves now have melee splash auto mod. Set staves will now gain bonus faster cast rate when upgraded in the cube. Corrupting an item that results in a corrupted rare item or brick will now apply a corruption mod to the item, like we talked about earlier. Elalu with the prime, thank you. Appreciate that. The Gibden quest reward will now grant you an already corrupted rare ring. Wait, can you explain the no cooldown? So we've removed global cooldown has been removed. There we go. There is no longer global cooldown. Yeah, so The Gibden reward now provides you with an already corrupted rare ring. Yeah. The Horizons event. Oh, apparently this is on here twice. The Horizon events will now make use of the area contains X monster mod. It's Gidbin. Oh yeah, it is Gidbin, isn't it? You know what's funny? When I was a kid, I always called it Gibden, and now in my brain, it's like forever Gibden. Gid. Like forever Gibden in my brain. Same with Travincial. Even though it's like Travancore, I'm pretty sure. I still call it Travincial. I don't know why. It's just like, that's how I pronounced it as a child, so it's just like forever brainwashed. Normander with the Prime. Appreciate that. With T1. 6 perfect skulls no longer allow you to reroll a dungeon. Telekinesis will no longer allow you to pick up arrows and bolts. Smitty Sant with the T1 44 months. Appreciate that, dude. Mercenaries will now drop equipped items when hiring a new mercenary. +% magic large charms have been added to the game. Mercenaries can now trigger chance to cast on cast. Added a new recipe to cube 30 flawless gems into 10 perfect. I plan on adding more recipes into this too. Uber material items and extremely rare items such as vials, mirrors, etc. can no longer be sold to vendors. Channeling skills now trigger chance to cast every X frames based on your faster cast rate breakpoint. Fixed a bug that allowed range attacks to deal 200% critical deadly strike. Now they deal the proper 150%. And fixed a bug that allowed range attacks to still reach 100% crit and deadly strike. Back to the 75%. Open Wounds now deals 1/4 damage to mercenaries and pets. Open Wounds is now reduced on mercenaries' pets by physical damage reduction %. Melee attacks deal splash damage. Now splash is skill damage instead of attack damage. Two new maps have been added. I'll be pushing the patch with their monsters tomorrow. I was supposed to be in the patch today, but like I said, my internet died, or not my internet, my power died when I was in the middle of finishing them. So that'll get pushed tomorrow. We've added new map mods. Area level increased by 1 is a new map mod. Area contains an additional boss. So this will have a random map boss in your map. It could be anywhere in the map, so you could just be cruising through the map and you could just be behind a door, in the middle of the room, or anywhere. Monsters have a chance to drop additional jewelry and charms. Monsters have a chance to drop additional armor. Monsters have additional weapons and additional charms. So these are all additional drops on top of the monster drops. They don't take them up. We added a new material at Anya that reduces base density by half. Added Orb of Fortification. We'll make this a little more clear. So we added Orb of Fortification, a new material at Anya that reduces base density by half and forces monsters to have 2 times health, grant 2 times experience, deal 20% additional damage, and monsters drop twice as much loot. We added some new corruption mods. Area level increased by 1. This can be combined with the prefix mod of area level increased by 1 for a total of +2. And we added a corruption mod. Players have -5% reduced maximum resistances. Oh yeah, sorry, this is actually old, you're right. We changed this. It is, no, this is, yeah, like this, sorry. And then, monsters have a chance to drop additional crafting materials. That was the original iteration. Then we changed it to this. Sorry, it's actually jewelry and charms, armor, weapons, and crafting materials is the 4. Isn't everyone going to run Orb of Fort, not just melee? The monsters are quite tanky, and they deal a significant amount of damage, so it will be hard to survive on anything that doesn't have a significant HP pool or strong mitigation. Some people might decide to opt and build tanky casters, but casters are often quite squishy and glass cannony compared to melee builds. So the whole the whole dynamic of the fights last longer and the monsters hit much harder is much more favorable to melee. But some people might run Orb of Fortification anyways as casters. I can't say it's going to be a perfect system. It's the first iteration of it. We might modify it, we might change it, but it will yeah, it'll mix up the meta regardless, right? Uber Ancient's sigil drop rates have been increased by 20%. And then we'll get into skills. Amazon. Javelin and Spear Mastery now properly applies to the throwing damage tooltip. Valkyrie AI has been improved. Valkyrie cooldown no longer reduces with base points, is now 2 seconds at all levels. Cooldowns are no longer shared with other skills. Freezing Arrow had some reductions, just a minor nerf to Freezing Arrow. Pierce scaling has been reworked from being a diminishing return to a more point percent scaling. Dodge now displays its faster hit recovery bonus in its tooltip. Dragon Talon now splashes its kick damage. Dragon Tail now converts its damage to fire before dealing the initial physical attack. Wake of Fire's 28 plus scaling has been reduced. Death Sentry has been buffed across the board. Cobra Strike Poison Bolt range has been increased by 17%. Fist of Fire is now dealing more damage overall. The fire dot damage is dealing a little bit less, but the overall skill is dealing more. Lightning Sentry has received a minor buff as well as a minor mana cost. Chain Lightning Sentry has also received a minor buff and minor mana cost reduction. Charge Bolt Sentry has been tuned down a little bit at late game, but buffed a little bit at early game, so it'll be a little bit better while leveling and a little bit worse at late game. Phoenix Strike Meteor synergies are now displaying their proper values. Weapon Block now gives 1% faster block rate per base point. Psychic Hammer bounce range has been increased by 33%, and it now properly displays that it has a damage reduction per bounce. Previously that was hidden. Blade Sentinel synergies have been increased slightly, and Blade Fury bounce missile velocity has been increased. This is the shatters that come off the wall, so when you hit a wall with Blade Fury, it creates the bounce missiles. Their missile velocity has been increased, as well as the synergies for them. Fixed a bug that caused Throw Mastery's enhanced damage bonus to apply twice. Battlecry duration increased from 5 seconds to 8 seconds. Double Throw now has Frenzy as a 6% damage synergy. Taunt range has been increased by 33%. Howl travel velocity increased by 33%. Howl range increased by roughly 20%. Leap attack synergies increased from 8 to 10. Just overall little buff to leap attack. And then this is kind of related to the rework that we talked about earlier on Concentrate. Concentrate now splashes its converted magic damage. Gets a lot more ED per level. It no longer gains bonus magic damage conversion from its bash synergy, but it has a higher base and caps at 80% now. So one of the reasons why it's capping at 80% is to leave that 20% fizz for leech. So it has a 20% wiggle room for leech, and also is able to convert its splash. Concentrate splashes its magic damage now. Has higher ED percent scaling. No longer has a plus 2% magic damage conversion bash synergy. Higher base magic damage conversion. Caps at 80%, leaving 20% wiggle room for leech. Alright. There we go. Thanks for waiting. No worries. I gotta make you feel welcome. It's your first time here. Alright, Druid. Arctic Blast now reduces enemies' cold resistance. This is going to get balanced further in Beta Patch 1. So this may be imbalanced in the current iteration. Rabies spread velocity increased by 40%. Rabies spread range increased by 25%. Rabies creeper synergies increased from 22 to 30%. And now caps at minus 50% on the debuff. Firestorm got some minor damage increases. Cyclone Armor now has a 2-second cooldown. You're going to see a few skills get set to 2-second cooldown. Now that cooldowns don't overlap or put other things on a GCDs, we can kind of balance things more around cooldowns because they're independent. Heart of the Wolverine is now providing its proper values. It was improperly providing 7% instead of 10% enhanced damage and 20% base instead of 25%. It also now got a 7 to 10% attack rating buff, so it provides more attack rating. So big buffs to Heart of the Wolverine. Fury got a nerf on its synergy by 2%. Summon Grizzly now has a 2-second cooldown instead of having no cooldown. Poison Nova level 28 plus scaling reduced from 11 to 11 to 10 to 10. Bone Armor cooldown increased to 2 seconds, similar to what you saw with the Cyclone Armor. Terror base move speed reductions increased. Some changes to curses across the board you'll see in a minute here. The track duration now caps at 15 seconds. Skelly Archers have more life and a raised Skelly Warrior synergy to promote combining skeletons. Skelly Warriors have a raised Skeleton Archer synergy and a little bit less life. Skelly Mages have a little bit less life as well, just a small bit. All curses now cap at a minimum or a maximum of 14-yard radius. What is the Skelly Warrior synergy? What is added to the skill? It's 2% damage. 2% damage. Who in the F is this? Who are you? Who are you?
Chat can boogie more.
Crazy Ivan with the 69. Appreciate that. Thank you. All curses now cap a maximum of 14-yard radius. So I can show you guys a 14-yard radius. I saw someone in chat complaining that 14 yards isn't big. So I'll show you guys how big 14 yards is real quick. Before you guys get too excited. "14 yards isn't big," whips out. Listen, nobody wants to see it if it's that big. It's just intimidating at that point and scary. Okay, Alright, this, for example, is 12 yards. This is 12 yards. So. Essentially close to the full screen. So this is 12 yards. 14 yards will be a little bit bigger than this. Apparently I actually have a cap to 12 right now, though. I must have changed it to 12 at one point. Alright. I'll just change this to 12 for now, and then I'll change it to 14 the next batch. Currently it's capped to 12, actually. You had to give up 2 yards in taxes. Yep. Season 7, 14 yards. Shrinkflation strikes again. Yeah, there you go. It's 12 yards now. Somebody, did you give Creeper more move speed? No, but maybe I'll play around with that idea. It's not a terrible idea. I don't know how that'll function with the AI, but I'll mess with that. So I changed curses as well. Curses now scale radius from base points. This is kind of a hit to procs, obviously. So curses radius now scales from base points, but the base radius of a bunch of curses has been increased. So like the base of amp went from 4 to 6. Decrepify went from 4 to 8. Lower res went from 6.6 to 8. So base radius increases, but they only scale from base points or curse mastery now. So and then Dark Pact got a minor 28 plus scaling nerf. Is Lacerator level 31 hard points in amp or soft points? So Lacerator, for example, will have a much lower radius on its curses. Yep. DP was busted XD. It's still, I'm gonna be honest with you, DP for AoE farming, even post these changes, is still busted. This barely changes anything. If I'm being 100% transparent, DP was overkilling by so much that this action makes no difference, except if you're very undergeared. If I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, so I wouldn't really get too worked up. It's more like it's slightly less OP. It's still insane for AoE clearing. Paladin, Defiance Aura now grants damage reduction for soft points instead of base points, and the defense per level has been reworked to a breakpoint scaling instead of flat % per level. Blessed Hammer no longer improperly displays that it's dealing bonus damage to undead. It's pretty much never done this in PT2. It just was improperly displaying the LED tooltip. Smite now deals splash damage. Holy Shield level 28 plus scaling reduced from 5 to 5. I guess I should put damage just to make this obvious. Damage per level to 4 to 4. So Smite can splash, but a little bit less damage. Holy Fire radius reworked from 6 yards flat to 4 yard scaling with a cap of 8. Holy Fire's aura damage to attack damage multiplier has been increased from 4x to 5x, and its synergies reduced from 20 to 18%. So it's got a bigger aura radius and more damage on its initial attack. And then a couple of the other auras have been kind of changed a decent amount. So the auras are going to do more radial tick damage than they did previously. Holy Free's aura damage to attack multiplier is reduced from 10x to 5x. But then its aura damage scaling has been increased by more than enough to compensate, so it does more damage overall. Holy Shock's radius has been increased from 8 yards to 9.3. And its attack damage multiplier has gone through the same thing, so it has a lower attack damage multiplier, but a higher damage overall. Does the stun on splash, smite splash as well? No, the stun only applies to the initial target on smite. Sanctuary Aura now reduces enemy magic resistance by -2% at level 1, an additional 1% up to -20%. Sanctuary no longer removes undead's physical resistance. Sanctuary Aura radius increased from 9.3 yards to 10. And then its damage has been reworked to take into consideration that it now has built-in pierce. Inferno now reduces enemy fire resistance. This will be balanced further in beta patch 1. Meteor physical damage now properly scales from fire mastery and +% fire damage sources. Meteor cooldown, I guess I should just put now scales. Meteor cooldown has been reduced by 19%. Blaze now has a 2-second cooldown. Cooldowns are no longer shared with other skills. Blaze maximum duration increased from 8 seconds to 10 seconds. And Blaze now grants cannot be frozen. Enchant has got a minor overall damage scaling increase. Cold Enchant has had a synergy increase. Fireball explosion radius has been increased by 25%. Frost Nova and Nova had level 28 plus scaling reductions, which is minor. Glacial Spike radius has been increased by 20%. And Hydra Fireball explosion radius has been increased by 50%. So we're not going to go too much into items. It's going to be pushed in beta patch 1. But there's a couple of them here. The rest of them will get pushed later on. We'll just go through the small ones here. But in this patch, there's Doom Runeward Holy Freeze increased from 12 to 16. Dream Runeward Aura increased from 13 to 14. Dream Runeward's 15 to 30 MF increased to 20 to 30. Ist and Armor increased from 25 to 30%. I should separate this into 2 lines. Runes 4% physical damage reduction increased to 5%. And Jaw Runes in Shields increased from 50 life to 75. New rune word added, Shattered Wall. Zod, Jaw, Ral, Cham. This is an example of it. It's a Holy Freeze rune word, which can be stacked with Doom, obviously. I know it was mentioned, but are Uber's clones Ratman disabled in the beta? So I hope so, but I understand why not. They are actually going to be disabled in the beta so that people focus on other things besides mashing the Ubers on repeat, since we didn't make any changes to the Ubers. There's no reason to test them currently. Why is Shattered Wall and not Will? Because there's already a million rune words called Will. A shield could be good on Vengeance. Yeah, the Skulls could be a good Vengeance shield. Also, Act 3 Mercenaries can wear Paladin shields, so... we added a new rune word, Asylum. This actually got changed since the last dev stream. It previously was Gol Cham Tyr Jaw Dal Now it's Gol Cham Hell Jaw Dal So Asylum is essentially a way to get a source of Sanctuary Aura, typically on a Mercenary. Although you could use it on a player as well if you wanted to. But it's made in staves, maces, hammers, bows, polearms, and spears. So it's kind of the infinity of magic builds, if that makes sense. And then it also has some meme potential, like you could make it in a bow to do like some Brands-on shenanigans with Fist of the Heavens. Or you could use it on a Paladin and, you know, put points into Fist of the Heavens and be like a Zealer hybrid. Different things, right? Depends what you want to do. It also, in a stave, becomes chance to cast on casting on the striking part. So if you're a Fist of the Heavens Paladin, you could make it in a staff. And you can use it as a self-cast, chance to cast on casting. And like we spoke about, in beta patch 1, I'll be adding the rest of the item changes, affix changes and corruption changes, and then the stuff for the new maps. So that'll come in beta patch 1. And in the meantime, people can test the skill balance changes and the new features and try to break these. And then I guess tomorrow, I figure, we'll do another beta stream, or a dev stream. Just be another short one. We'll go over the items real quick. And then we'll add a few more things. What do you have doing with mirrors? I still plan on making mirrors only work with rares, but that'll have to come in a beta patch. Yeah, I think the plan, I'm not going to write it on here because it's not in the closed beta patch, but I do want to make mirrors work on only magic and rare, I believe. What's the CTC on cast chance on Asylum? It's the exact same as the melee currently, so it'd be 25%. Might change it, we'll see. I don't know. Still playing with it, honestly. New corruptions are just changes. There will be some mods getting replaced, and some mods getting balanced. So, thought about adding FCR to Asylum and Staves. Staves have auto mod FCR, so you would get 50% if it was made in an elite stave. Does that include crafts? No, mirrors will not function on crafts, is my plan. My plan is magic and rares. Any updates to the trade website? We're still plugging along, no promises. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to take it from there, though, and we'll see how it goes.